Hello, I'm Dr. Diane Webster, and today's story is called Touch and Go. It starts in Vanuatu in the South Pacific, then we travel to Mackay, Queensland, Australia, and finally end up in Melbourne, Victoria. Touch and Go. April 2001, Vanuatu, Pacific Islands. I was feeling nauseous every morning and not sure why. We were in Vanuatu with a humanitarian agency doing voluntary eye surgery and teaching cataract and pterygium surgery at the main hospital in Port Vila. The local team at the hospital were very supportive. I was working with a US surgeon who had brought all the surgical supplies we needed from the US. I had travelled to Vanuatu from my home base in Mackay, Queensland, Australia. Every morning we worked in the clinic to review the post-op patients from the day before and check the new patients scheduled for cataract surgeries that afternoon. All these patients had been previously triaged by an optometry team that had been through the previous month. I found myself stopping after seeing every 3 to 5 patients and rushing to the ladies' toilet to dry reach. I thought it was just the strange, unfamiliar smells of the clinic that were making me nauseous. It was very hot and humid every day, and the clinic was filled with sweaty bodies sitting very close together in the small space we had been allocated to examine them. I told myself that this would have to be my last visit to Vanuatu for a cataract surgery mission, as I obviously was not tolerating the conditions well. The afternoons in theatre were much more tolerable, however. It was cooler in theatre, and the smell was one of sterility rather than sweaty bodies. My co-surgeon, Dr. Brad Hanna from San Francisco, was asking me why the nurses were taking so much time between cases. We seemed to be working slower each day and getting fewer cataract surgeries done. "How can we get turnover time shortened, Diane?" Brad asked me. "It takes 15 minutes to do each case, but there is a 30-minute break before we can do the next case." I went out to the clean-up area where the nurses were cleaning and sterilizing the surgical instruments and the patient linen for each surgery. "It is a big problem for us," the head nurse, Maya, said to me. "We have to be home for our husbands before nightfall. There is no electricity at home, and we have to have the meal prepared for husbands before they come home after fishing all day." I was so surprised to know that these hard-working local nurses not only did a full day's work at the hospital, but were expected to prepare the evening meal for their families each day before darkness fell. "We want to help you to finish early each day," I said, "but we can't because the changeover time for each surgery is so slow. If you could reduce the changeover time to, say, 10 minutes instead of 30 minutes, as it currently is, then Dr. Hanna and I will agree to finish operating by 4:30 p.m. every day so that you can all get home to your families for cooking." After much discussion amongst the nurses, there was an amazing increase in productivity. For the remainder of the week, we ended up completing at least 5 extra surgeries each afternoon, compared to what we had been previously able to achieve, and we still finished at 4:30 p.m. each day. The nurses apparently just needed a reason to speed up, and we found it. Returning back to Mackay, to my ophthalmology practice, I was expecting my nausea to be resolved, but it was not to be the case. Each morning I was still dry reaching, and then it hit me. 6 weeks since my last period. It couldn't be. I'm 45 years old. According to a recent article in the Medical Journal of Australia, I had seen the graph with my own eyes. It's extremely unlikely for a woman over the age of 43 years to spontaneously get pregnant. I had stopped contraception since my 43rd birthday on the weight of this evidence. I bought a pregnancy test from the local supermarket and I was very surprised it was positive. My first ultrasound test with my husband Leonard at my side at the local obstetrician's office delighted us both. It showed a tiny fetus with a strong, rapid heartbeat. My past obstetric history was not good, however. Even though I had previously delivered 2 healthy sons, now aged 10 and 8, I had suffered 12 miscarriages over the previous 23 years and 1 devastating stillbirth, a daughter 13 years previously. It was my first visit to this obstetrician, Dr. Roy Brace, in Mackay. My previous miscarriages and stillbirth had all occurred when we lived in Brisbane. We had only been living in Mackay for the last 3 years. Dr. Brace was quite laid back about my pregnancy, to put it mildly. He said he didn't need to see me again for the next few months until the 18-week ultrasound and amniocentesis. The amnio was routine for a 45-year-old like myself. There is a high risk of Down syndrome in the baby. I was known in medical speak as an elderly multigravida with a poor obstetric history. The 18-week ultrasound and amnio visit came around very quickly, and then we waited with bated breath for the results of the amnio. I was consulting on a Tuesday morning and I had only one last patient to see for the morning. "The lab is on the phone," my receptionist Lucy said, "with your amnio results. Will you take it?" I thought I probably should see the last patient for the morning and then ring the lab back, but I just couldn't wait that long. "I'll take it," I said, and Lucy put the call through to my consulting room. "The amnio result is fine," the lab technician said in a detached voice. "Completely normal. Do you want to know the sex?" "Yes," I said quietly. "It's a girl," replied the technician. I could feel the tears of joy instantaneously running down my face. My husband, Len, walked into the consulting room just at that very moment via the side door from the back corridor and saw the tears running down my face. "Is something wrong?" he said when he saw my tears. "No, she's perfect. It's a girl." I could barely whisper. I was so excited. I was really wishing I had seen that last patient before I received this news. I didn't want the patient to see my tears, otherwise I would have to explain myself, which would overshadow the patient's own problems. So I dried my face and put on my most professional voice and called the patient in. "Come in, Mrs. Johnson. How are you? How can I help you today?" I beamed. We had decided that we would leave Mackay and move back to my hometown in Melbourne at the end of the year, since schools and the peer group would be better for my sons. I was convinced of this from all the incidents that had happened over the last 3 years in the northern beaches of Mackay, where we lived. If they stayed at their current public primary school into their secondary school years, I was sure that they would both end up either addicted to smoking, alcohol and drugs, or probably land in jail for misdemeanours such as petty theft or roof rocking, just to name a few of the activities that were rife in the northern beaches of Mackay where we lived. We decided to make the move before the baby was born, and she was due in mid-December 2001. The date was set for the September school holidays, so the boys would have the last school term of the year at their new state school in Melbourne. I asked Dr. Brace to refer me to a Melbourne obstetrician with whom he had a high opinion. The move went smoothly, apart from being burgled on our first night in Strathmore. We had flown down to Victoria and all our furniture, computers, TV and so on came down in the removals truck. We were tired after helping the men unload the truck for hours and move everything gently into the right rooms of our new rental home. We decided to stay the night at my parents' place in the nearby suburb of Essendon. I was just too tired to make up the beds that night, and being more than 6 months pregnant certainly didn't help. Next morning, when we returned to our new rental home, we found the back glass doors smashed and most of the furniture and electricals, including all our computers, gone. This was not a good welcome to Melbourne, especially when I thought I was taking the boys away from the crimes of the northern beaches of Mackay. We decided the burglars must have watched us move in the day before and realised that they were in luck when we didn't sleep the night there. It was an easy burgle for them from an empty house. This was another lesson learned on my part. When you move house, stay the first night in the house and not at your parents' place. I was in for a shock when I first visited my new Melbourne obstetrician, Dr. Claire Patterson, at the end of September. "I haven't got good news for you, Diane," she said. "You're an elderly multi-gravitar with a bad obstetric history, and the chances of you delivering a healthy baby girl here are only 50-50, she said to me gravely. My previous obstetrician had never said anything like that to me. I had only seen him 3 times in the pregnancy so far. "I'll need to see you every week from now on," Dr. Patterson said, with some urgency in her voice. Every week, I thought. That's certainly keeping a close eye on things. I was impressed by her professionalism, but I didn't allow myself to be anything other than hopeful that it would all go well. November 2001. 37 weeks now. And today my regular appointment is due with Dr. Patterson. After waiting in her waiting room for the requisite 20 minutes, she was always running late and seemed to be very busy with her many patients, I found myself up on the examination couch. Dr. Patterson had a worried look on her face, with her stethoscope in her ears and the ultrasound machine on my belly. "The heartbeat is very soft," she said, sounding anxious. "I can hardly detect it. You'll have to go over to St. Vincent's Private now, and I'll induce you. We need to deliver the baby soon." I knew things were not good. A very similar scenario had occurred with Rebecca, my stillborn baby, at 39.5 weeks. The obstetrician that time had not been able to get a heartbeat at all and told me at the consultation that there was no hope of a live birth. This was different though, I told myself, and a heartbeat was detectable. Just. I was still hoping. 3 hours later, following my admission to St. Vincent's Hospital and induction, Dr. Patterson came back into the delivery room. I had been labouring with strong contractions, but apparently not much had been happening as far as dilation of the cervix was concerned. We had tried for a normal delivery and it was failing. "There's been no progress in your labour, Diane, and I can't get a heartbeat tracing down the electrode I have attached to your baby's head." "What does that mean?" I asked, not thinking clearly and trying to prepare myself for the worst. "There's a faint heartbeat there, but we need to deliver your baby quickly now. With your past history, we will need to do an emergency caesarean section immediately," Dr. Patterson said in a concerned tone. Now I knew what was happening. Things were not good. In record time, I was given a high spinal anaesthetic by the anaesthetist and trolleyed into the emergency theatre. Time seemed to slow down from my side as Dr. Patterson performed the abdominal incision and brought out baby Catherine. I could see the time on the clock on the operating theatre wall high up in front of me. It was 11:45 p.m. Dr. Patterson had actually delivered the baby within about 5 to 10 minutes from the start of the incision to the delivery of the baby. A paediatrician had suddenly appeared in the theatre, and Dr. Patterson handed baby Catherine over to him. "APGAR score 10 out of 10, I heard him say. Thank God, I thought, she's going to be fine. My husband Len was by my side, and after baby Catherine had been fully assessed as normal, she was wrapped up and handed to Len. I had no power or feeling in my arms from the high spinal anaesthetic, so I couldn't hold her myself, but I could see that she was healthy and perfect in every way. I finally had my little girl, the daughter I never thought I would ever have, the daughter I had longed for." That's the end of the story. Thanks for listening. For more stories, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Dr. Diane Leslie Webster. Until next time, goodbye.